All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome on back here to wrap things up for this week, Friday, June 15th, June 25th. Jeez, living in the past there. Great to see all of our students, Norman, Andrea, Jeff, Jean, Ray, all of us live inside the Cyber Group room, all of us on social media, Facebook Live and YouTube. Welcome on back. So, I'm going to try not to stutter as badly as I did from yesterday afternoon. There was a lot of talking yesterday, not as much today. I got a full water bottle, good to go. And then with that also, I want to bring up Bitcoin before we finish up this meeting. We'll get to that at the end, but going into the weekend, I always want to make sure I cover that at least. You know, we're not really following the blockchain or Bitcoin mining affiliated with stocks like Riot or Mara today, but we'll talk about Bitcoin going into the end of the meeting, what I personally expect to happen going into the weekend and so forth. So without further ado, Express, in one of many stocks that pushed up really nicely for us here this morning, ended up taking off. I mean, not right away as the market opened up, but really just beginning to move up going into 10 o'clock, 10:15 Eastern time. It broke out over 6, and obviously the rest was history, as you could see. Ended up pushing all the way up towards an eventual high right off of 867, essentially making the false breakout from 850, right? So, we were watching this heading into the afternoon. For as much as it moved up, when would you expect this stock to bounce? When would you expect it to make a higher low? When would you expect support to build? So on this trade, I was watching this with a couple of our students, Brian, Jeff, and we were looking at 775 at first, and it was building up at first nice, then it fell flat. So I ended up taking a few cents on it, got out like right before it broke below where I got in from. But man, it was a very quick bounce from that point. I jumped back in on this trade myself off of 763, right over the VWAP price at the time, and still right around 761 the VWAP for today. Ended up pushing this up beautifully. Got out right off 810. But going into the early afternoon, I jumped back in on this trade right before I started the meeting. Ended up taking a 6-cent loss as it broke down from 785. So I expected a higher low to be built from here in the push. I didn't get it. At least for right now, given how we're familiar with this stock, it's still very volatile, very tradable this time of the day right now. So I'll certainly put this on our watch list. It's hard not to still. Even if it ends up dumping off after, it's still worth the opportunity right now as we speak, especially as it's right over still my price 775 at first. That was the first big support I was looking at. Ended up breaking down towards the VWAP and then made the move. But here now, right back at 775. So, if this wants to move up, this would be the price to do it from. You wouldn't expect this to drop another 50 cents and then a bounce all within the next hour and a half. If it's going to bounce, this should be it. So we'll put it on our list for right now, the Express trade right off 775, and we'll come back to it at the end. All right, Norman here in the chat board said PLTR moving up. Norman, you had a good call out earlier also, though. It was on the LXRX trade, and this one's still pushing or still holding near the highs. We had called this out practically right off the first pop as it ended up moving, second pop rather, off of $5.20. We ended up first calling this out. And then from there, again, another nice, beautiful push. I mean, more so heading into the early afternoon after 1 p.m. Eastern time, but stock ended up breaking higher from the 550 level, ran practically up to 6. The false breakout from 6 is to be expected. Just like I was talking about on the Express trade, for as much as that stock moved up and up and up and up and up, when's it going to pull back? Hasn't pulled back yet, but for as much as it goes up, you expect false breakouts more than anything. And if they don't come, then, it's just what happens more often than not. So it would happen much sooner than later. Here, at least, although it didn't dump off, it did make the false break at first from 6. It's holding under that price right now. So, yeah, LXRX, I'll just add this to our list here for the afternoon. All right. We did well on the ALF trade from earlier. We did well on the GRVI stock from earlier. Unfortunately, that was one that ended up snapping a bit down pretty quickly into the morning, but we'll get to that next. The ALF trade, speaking of snapping down, doing that right now itself, if I'm not mistaken, Andrea C in our trading room just killed it on a short. I don't know if he got in on the second break below 17 here. That's what he was looking for at first, but it's hard to borrow from my end on TradeStation. So we are more focused on the pop from earlier this morning. I mean, again, we didn't really, put this stock on our main watch list for the open because it didn't really show much activity in pre-market. If that's the case, then we may as well add every stock to the watch list, right? So just because we didn't put it on the main watch list doesn't mean that we're not going to call it out. Doesn't mean that we can't capitalize on it. This ended up making as beautiful of a push as it made back from Tuesday of this week when it ended up popping from 8 up towards like $16. Today ended up making the move from 13 up towards just about 21 or right under. So, great. God bless. This thing ended up making a much bigger push than I would ever expect. For it breaking all-time highs, it might be easy to assume just, a cleaner pop or a bigger move, but you can't expect that every day. We caught that back on Tuesday of this week, and to see the pop today is one thing, but to see this make a 7-point run, almost 8-point run practically, as the market opened up. Here right now, it's beginning to bounce right from the 16 level. Andre, if you were short on ALF, I hope you got out. But yeah, for the meantime, I guess I'll come back to this. I was going to write it off into the afternoon, but this push right now as we speak is making me think otherwise. Maybe this does make one more push, perhaps closer to the highs, before the show is over. So ALF, I'll jump back to. We'll kind of put it on the side list to begin. And you know what? What we'll do is may as well just go from top to bottom. I talked about the GRVI trade. Space was a big mover for us this morning, pre-market, then after the open. So we'll talk about it all. Let's just go right from the top now, I guess. The IKNX. Try saying that 3 times fast. I mean, really, if you have trader's dyslexia, that's going to trick you. But the IKNX trade, the stock I'm not familiar really with too much. And, for doing this, show basically every day for the last 6.5 years, that goes to say something. It doesn't mean that it's not tradable. Of course, this stock ended up moving up after the market opened, but it seemed really shaky. Stock has a really thin order book, big spread, very thin volume on the bid and the ask. So, granted, the stock ended up making a big push from earlier today. It almost seems like it's making the same type of pop as Wishes right now, as ALF is right now. I'm sorry. Getting back to that, you can kind of see the same bounce at this time of the day, but I don't know. IKNX, we don't really need to put that on our main watch list right now. Let's see what else we got. The GRVI, you could see right out the gate, it ended up actually getting halted, popped up from there. We ended up catching this more from the bounce. So we were looking for the bounce on this trade after it ended up, beginning to dump off its high of the day and ended up coming down. I took a loss on this trade at first, and then I caught the bounce later on. It was like a 12 or 14 cent loss. I got shaken out on this thing bad. But for the loss that I took, it ended up making up for it. I caught the bounce off 750. Pushed it up towards 8+. I left a lot of money on the table there too. But, again, almost, the same line of thinking, though, as the IKNX stock. I mean, this is more of a new IPO, so we'll give this, a little leeway. But we've never traded the stock before, so we're a little bit more timid. We're not going to be as confident on this as we would be on something that we're a lot more familiar with, like, let's say Express or ALF or, even that LXRX that's on our list. I'm familiar with that. We've traded that stock in the past. This stock, we just don't really have a feel for just yet. So you want to be picky and choosy with that. Again, on the IKNX, same thing. And here on the GRVI, it made for a nice bounce, but the volume totally died off after. So you know what I'll say with that. But we're not going to watch it here for the close. We'll skip over it now. FFHL, unfortunately more of a dud. It was on our oh no, Fausto didn't even put this on the pre-market watch list. I'll tell you, I was more interested in this stock in pre-market. At least I wasn't watching this like out the gate at the open. But again, the stock was up big from the after hours the day before, and it was dropping off but bouncing going into 8 o'clock. I thought there was a chance for the stock to make a nice run. Well, that was until I ended up checking this, and that's what I want to show you on this one stock. Then we'll move on. Before today's move, the stock was trading like just under 1 million shares yesterday. All right, that's not bad. 23,000 shares this stock traded in total back on Wednesday of this week. 18,000 shares this stock traded back on Tuesday. That's nothing, right? That's literally garbage. I could take 6 trades and trade as much volume as that stock did back on Tuesday of this week. So it goes with saying that, hey, if this stock doesn't begin to show any signs of life, you got to get the hell out, because the drop-off is going to be really big afterwards. I mean, I would have expected this to fill the gap at this point, although it's kind of holding here. It's not worth watching now at this point, folks. I would just move on. Now, at the same time as I talk about these stocks that we're not familiar with, well, we're familiar with ALF now, but, last week we really weren't, right? When this first started taking off, we were not familiar with the stock. It was a relatively new IPO. It was from, perhaps April or May of this year. May. But at least on the flip side, this stock was trading, a few days over 1 million shares a day. Not really a whole lot otherwise, but it proved itself to be a great stock, not just because of the pops up, but the amount of shares that this stock trades per day since. 216 million, granted, 45 million here when it dropped off. So even on a down day, it's trading 45 milli. That's a lot. So, regardless of what this stock does in terms of its direction over the next week, I'll be watching this stock. It's got a big spread, has thin volume on the book, all of that. But anytime you see a stock consistently trade, tens of 20s, if not 50s of millions of shares per day, you're going to want to stay on that stock going forward. At least keep it in mind. So, again, we'll come back to ALF actually by the end of this meeting because it's still kind of pushing up nice. So I think I probably will add that to our list. I'll just jump back to it at the end. Space, I should say, Space Virgin Galactic. This obviously ended up making the big pop off the news that came out earlier this morning. But for as much as it moved up again, when would you expect this stock to pull back, or rather, where would you expect it to pull back to? So that answer was based on the pre-market volume. I'm a little disappointed that it didn't pull back exactly to 45, ended up bouncing from 46. I ended up jumping in on this trade as a long, then a short, and that wasn't really the best idea, but I still made money on the short. I realized pretty quick this was just going to continue going up. But this stock ended up making its big break from 46.80 and then from there 47. We had a lot of buying off the pre-market there as it was beginning to consolidate at first from that price. And that's what led to the pop more so in the pre-market leading into the open. But, the question always remains, what if history repeats itself? That's the case with this stock. That's the case with any other stock that you look at in pre-market. If we see big buying in pre-market after the market opens, what if we see more big buying from the same price and above? So that's what I thought on the space trade here off of 46.80. Ended up squeezing $1.50 on this trade myself. It wasn't on a lot of shares, mind you, given the price of the stock. I did it on 500 shares total, which is still a lot for this price, but it's a decent profit in terms of the trend, and it goes to show how much money I left on the table afterwards. This ended up making, if not the immaculate move, more, because we ended up seeing a top line of resistance on this trade at $55 from pre-market. That's where we had our top iceberg order. So, in a dream scenario, it makes that move. Unfortunately, we don't live in a happy world, dreamland here, right? Oftentimes that does not happen. So this ended up making that push, if not more, right? It topped off the high of the day at 56.40 plus or something. It seems pretty volatile still, and otherwise moving back up towards resistance where we had here. I don't know what that price is. We'll get it to you. 54.30 we'll kind of round up to and say 54.30 resistance up from the chart earlier today. I don't know. I mean, I guess I could add this to our list, but I'll keep it on the side. If I need to put this on at the end, I will. Relatively pricey. I want to see if there's anything much less expensive at this point. Is obviously running in pre-market, so we'll make exception for a stock this priced out. But for as much as it ran up, how much more do you expect it to move up? That's the thing. All right, OSMT, another stock like the FFHL today. Look at the amount of volume the stock was trading day to day. Maybe 250,000 shares the most. Really bad. So going into the open, the stock was pushing up nicely, but then unfortunately at 9 o'clock dumped right off, and ever since, of course, continued. So we passed on it from that point, but again, that was a dud from pre-market there. The stock looked like MOMO for a second. That goes to show how bad my trader's dyslexia is right now. SNCR ended up making a nice pop, at least from the morning. Made a second move up going into the afternoon, and crapped out already. I'd say the stock is is shortable. So if it could break down, crap out the other way, it could be a good opportunity. But I say that for stocks that haven't crapped out yet, that are still at the highs, that have a chance to break higher. But if they don't, then perhaps they can go the other way. And obviously that's what happens here, but not much of an opportunity now at this point. Nike popping up still. I don't know if it's all-time highs. My belief is that it is, but either way, just pretty expensive. TNXP, familiar name, cheapy, but obviously not doing anything either there. Casa, a Reddit stock, a meme stock, as you may want to call it, whatever. Popped up pretty nicely today, but it's also a stock that has really thin liquidity on the book. We don't need to add the stock to our watch list at this point. I mean, it's Friday afternoon, so unless if there's something that's making a really convincing move with great volume on the book, then I'm not going to feel a need to add it. So far, we only have 2 stocks on our main watch list between the Express and then the LXRX trade. And, either I would say both of those, are very tradable, but I want to see something like right at the highs that's like right there popping to make a new high of the day on great liquidity, and not really seeing much of that. For as much as rail ran up yesterday for us, ended up diving off today. It crapped out. It was shortable. Market's up at least, so we're not going to find a whole lot that's on the loser's end here, right? Oh, look at this. Actually, right as I say that, I don't know if it's making a great move on the chart, but Rite Aid down again. Stock was on our list going into the morning. It was on our list in the afternoon, I thought. Ended up breaking down a lot more this morning, as you could see. Ended up bottoming out right off of 1625-ish, and yeah, not a whole lot happening right now. It's a good stock to keep in mind for next week. Maybe you'll see a squeeze back up momentarily. EDU, for as much as it squeezed up from the first half of this week, obviously dumping back down now. It's at the lows. It is shortable. All right, so I'll tell you, that leads me to Canon, I guess, because I just see it right now, number 27 on the losers list. It's shortable, yada, yada, yada. We're not going to follow Canon, but that segues me perfectly right to Bitcoin. So let me do that next, and then we'll jump around otherwise, see if there's anything at the last seconds here of this meeting that we could add to our list. But, I have my moving averages back up here finally. I was able to get them, up and running for today. So really quickly, just want to go over this because I wasn't as clear on this because I wasn't able to show my moving averages when I last covered this, but this is the 500 EMA. Back on Tuesday of this week when we saw Bitcoin crash, or quote unquote crash, well, it ended up crashing overnight into the morning. So really this bottom was built by 8:30, 9 o'clock, whenever that was, early in the morning back on Tuesday of this week. So it ended up essentially bouncing right off the 500 EMA there, right? Pretty cool how that works out. Ended up holding under the 200 EMA here, and that's where I said I knew that we'd be pulling back, but to what extent? Hopefully we would see higher lows and then the move back up. That is not what happened yet. The China news came out with the banks. They're trying to restrict the banks, I believe, from accepting Bitcoin as currency, or at least for their clients. I know that they ended up blocking major areas of China from mining for Bitcoin. So that's what led to the drop this week. And today we are seeing a bit further of a pullback, not further yet, but a bit of a pullback from yesterday. And really quickly, I'll just mention this right now. So I have some data, a website that I go to that looks for liquidity on the long and short side for all cryptos. Over this morning, we've had more shorts added going into the weekend, a lot. So the last time that really happened was when we ended up seeing Bitcoin tank back from Monday into Tuesday of this week, really. So is it to guarantee that it's only going to continue to drop lower? I don't know. I mean, I hope that's not the case, but even if it is, it will present a good buying opportunity. So, is it possible for this to actually break the 500 EMA and then bounce back up over it over time? Yeah, of course, but we'll react to it as we go, day by day, or at least going into Monday of next week. I'll pull this back up and we'll see where we stand. Really, in terms of any positions that I have, the last entry on anything that I took was on Ethereum, and that was back from Tuesday of this week. I ended up seeing some shorts being covered on Ethereum, and that's what led me to take my entry there. Let's see where that actually is, just for fun. It's actually right where I purchased, so I'm practically right break even from the very small position I added back on Tuesday. My price that I got in on Ethereum was like 1837 exactly, so it's actually right there as we speak. I mean, either way, we'll see if everything continues to drag down lower, or at least towards where we had that bottom from Tuesday, or if the higher lows begin to build over time. Any sort of news from China will continue to drop crypto. Any tweet from Elon will, likely pop or drop crypto. So, obviously very volatile. I know that. I want you to know that I know that. So I'm not forecasting what's going to happen by Friday of next week. We're reacting as we go. That's practically it. All right, so with that leaves me, I guess now we'll go to Riot Mara, I guess, because if those are down, then maybe it could present a dead cat bounce into the close. Not really as volatile right now, Mara nor Riot, so I guess for right now I'll pass on them. All right, folks, I ran through everything. Let me know if there's anything up, down, left, right, more than 5% that you see that you would want me to look at before we close the show. From Dan, he's asking about the SENS trade. Look at that. Nice trade. Yeah, absolutely. popping right now. It's up 8%. Fantastic call, really. I mean, you heard me clamoring all about stocks that we need to have at the highs, great liquidity, and lo and behold, it's popping up on my Benzinga Pro page now as I'm looking at that finally. But I'll give Dan the credit there. Dan F on the YouTube stream here. Great call on the SENS trade. Cool. I would assume big level off of 51,000 share order showing, but probably a lot more than that on the ask. That's my belief, at least. From Lynette, she's saying PSFE is up again inside the trading room. Yeah, pretty volatile still. I like that. Nice bounce from 12. Good for about 45 cents so far. Wow, it's kind of hard to not put this on our list now for me. It's shortable, so it goes both ways, right? In the sense of continuing this trend on the way up, or if it holds from this resistance here, perhaps off 1250, 1251, the VWAP, could that be a good short opportunity? Perhaps, right? We'll find out. Either way, you know, we don't really have too many stocks on our watch list, and this ain't a bad call. I like this. All right, from Norman, he's got PLTR 27. Oh, nice pop here. PLTR. It's not up like any more than, you know, 1%. So there's no chance I would have found this on the gainers end. But either way, we don't need a stock to be up 5% for us to watch it. This stock we are very familiar with. We trade PLTR all the time off of news, off of volatility like you're seeing here. I don't have any sort of headline for you right now. No news headline of sorts yet on PLTR. But, I mean, this might be the best setup so far that we have. Awesome. Norman also saying space popping up. Holy crap. This thing just popped up $1.50 from where I last left off with it. And at this point, I think it's needless to be said, right? All right, there you go. What is this? All the Reddit stocks right now popping? I see Nokia popping. I see Space popping. Palantir popping. BlackBerry had earnings. I don't know if they're going to be popping. They had earnings overnight. They missed, so I don't think they'll be popping. AMC not doing a whole lot there. All right, let's see. Nokia from Lynette. No, Nokia is not popping here. It ran earlier. Very flat right now. So that was a call out from our live trading room. So Nokia, not as much. Space, absolutely. Palantir, absolutely. That PSFE, I still like. So yeah, that too. Tupperware at the high of the day, it's 8.5% up. Yeah, but again, this thing is just as slow as molasses for a $23 stock. Compare apples to oranges here. What would you rather follow? Tupperware is more of a swing trade, if anything, there. All right, Dan F again on YouTube. Jumping back to the stream here. Dan F, let's see if we can go for 2 for 2. The XERS, looking at that too, up 13+%. Practically making the same move as SENS, right? I don't know if they're in the same business. Dan, you might have a tip for us there. But yeah, great call. Also, you folks are building up the list for me here. You're doing all the work for me right now. I appreciate this. No, but it's true though, right? Like I wasn't really looking at this as much at, you know, going into the meeting. I don't know if I skipped over it, but it was relatively slow right before this big pop. So that's enough for me to be convinced that this would be a nice move here. From RJF on YouTube also asking about Torch. Yeah, not a whole lot happening there. I mean, it made the squeeze up earlier this morning. I took that trade. That was a nice pop. I ended up leaving some money on the table, but it was worth a good entry. And, you know, here for the close, I was looking at it here, right? So 24 hours ago, I was talking to you folks about this trade, and I was in it. And I told you at the time, I was like, you know, just so you know, I'm out on this stock. I said that. And look what happened after. It was a complete dump off. Look at the pattern that was built. Popped in the morning, pulled back. This was the same support, and it just didn't give it to us. Today, it gave it to us early in the morning, but now at this point, it's like literally the same pattern, I feel. There we go. So I'm not as convinced on this. Doesn't really have a whole lot of volatility here at this point either. The VXRT trade from Joe in the trading room, one of our newest gold students. Joe, welcome aboard. You know, VXRT is still relatively active. It's going to be a no. It's like American Idol. It's going to be a no for me. I don't know. But no, but really, though, it's a stock we're familiar with, and it's making a nice bounce as we speak. The volume really died off on it, though. So I don't know if it does pop. If it makes a move over, let's say 865, I'll be there to call it out. But I'd rather have you folks start off on these ones here, like Express, the Palantir, definitely. The XERS, I like that a lot more still at this point. And I'll tell you, even that, PSFE from Lynette, that was making a nice push off at 12. That seems to be still fairly active. So there's a lot to go around right now. If this does pop, we'll be there to call it out for sure. But I think that we'll start off with the list that we have here to begin. XERS is still running. All right, folks, that's going to wrap it up for me here for the day and for the week, of course. So for all of us in social media, make sure, if you haven't already, make sure that you like, subscribe, notify right on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/cybertradingu. If you've yet to join us live inside our trading room Monday to Friday, feel free to sign up. Just go right down to the link on the banner below to get yourself started. Zero stuttering here into the afternoon meeting. I'm proud of myself. I hope you're proud of me. Scott at the end here, calling out at the buzzer. Koss. We looked at cost before, so this is going to be a no because of the liquidity or lack thereof on the book. Huge spread. We don't need to follow a stock like that. We're already, set with XERS and LXRX even, and again, all the others that we have on the list so far. I choose VXRT over this in a heartbeat, definitely. All right, but otherwise, folks, for all of us on social media, I appreciate you sticking with me each and every day. I hope that you have a great weekend, and we'll catch back with you on Monday. For all of us live inside the trading room, I'm going to jump back on the mic right about in about 10, 15 minutes. You got me at 3:15 today, but I'll be back on the mic very shortly to wrap things up for you folks into the close. I'll talk to you soon.